Okay, so this is just a reminder about annotating a poem. We've been through this a couple of times in class, but I just wanted to have it on record so you can go back and have a look at it if you needed a bit of a reminder or a refresher. So, annotating a poem. To annotate means to add notes, giving an explanation or comment. So this is where you go through the poem and you're annotating, you're making notes about the poetic devices, so whether there's a rhyme, whether there's poets use simile, metaphor, all of those different poetic devices, literary devices that we've already identified in class. So you can do this digitally, straight onto your War Poetry booklet. If you don't have it already, you should have. It's available on eLearn. You can also print it out and do it manually. That's how I usually do mine, a bit old school. I usually do it with different colour pens on paper. But this way I can actually just show it to you directly onto your booklets. So this first poem, The Call, we've done this a few times, but I want to use this to demonstrate how we record a rhyme scheme. So in this particular poem, we have a rhyme scheme at the end of the line, so we've already identified this. But how we annotate this is that we use letters of the alphabet to note different rhymes. So the first rhyme that we identify is trench and French. So we give that an A. First one of the alphabet, it's the first rhyme that we've seen. As we move down the poem, we see that laddie is repeated and therefore rhymes with itself. So we give that B as the next rhyme scheme in our poem. So B, B, B after each line ending with laddie. We then identify we have a third rhyme scheme with begin, win, skin. In these lines we give that a C because that's the third rhyme scheme. So we have A, B, C, 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 B. So we describe this in a sentence as the poem employs or uses an A, B, C, 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 B rhyme scheme. You can also note that it uses the same rhyme scheme in every stanza. So we can see here that thanks and ranks, they also rhyme. Let's do that a bit neater. We've got laddie, laddie, laddie again. Again, this doubles up as a rhyme, but also as a repetition. The use of my laddie, my laddie down there. And then again, these three lines rhyme as well. Comes, drums, thumbs. So we give that a C. That's the third rhyme scheme we've identified. So A, B, C, 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 B, used in all three stanzas of the poem. The other thing I wanted to remind you about is this use of my laddie. Remember, she's talking directly to the young men that haven't yet gone to war. This repetition of my laddie, the use of the second person, so you, she's pointing the finger. Let's give it a green. So, you is the second person. Remembering the first person is me, I, third person is he, she, second person in the middle is you. So you singular. Okay? So that repeated use of you and my laddie. So these are things I would note as well. When it comes to looking at imagery and symbolism and metaphors and what have you, I'm going to move on to the Wilfred Owen poem, which we remember he was initially going to title it To Just a Pope, with a bit of a, you know what, you've made it sound kind of glorious and heroic, but hey, this is the bleak reality of war. So just to make it a bit easier for myself, I've put it in a table. I've also numbered the lines, and that makes it a lot easier when you're actually writing about the poem to indicate, for instance, in line 9, the gas attack, so it's much easier to annotate in that way. I'm just going to move my little table over a little bit. Give yourself more space. There we go. So, first thing we can have a look at is like old beggars under sacks. So bent double like old beggars under sacks. So obviously that's the simile. If I was really organised, I'd give this a colour scheme, but I haven't really thought about it. So simile, like old beggars. So bent double. So we've got imagery of old age, infirmity, and yet he's actually talking about soldiers. So these soldiers have been through such a lot that they are bent over as if they're old men, poor old men, carrying things probably to sell. Knock-kneed, coughing like hags. So again, another simile, coughing like hags. And hag is really, actually describes an old woman, usually maybe a witch. So obviously coughing in a really unhealthy, unappealing way. So coughing like hags is another simile. Simile, likening to witch, we put that. You've also got this, we cursed through sludge. So cursed, swore. So they're basically, knock-kneed, coughing, bent over, like old men, old hags, cursing, swearing their way through mud. Okay? So you would say it was a metaphor because they're actually walking through the sludge or they're treading through the sludge, but they curse through sludge is a metaphor and it's describing the fact that they are finding it difficult. It's muddy, it's disgusting, and they're swearing. Cursed. Oops. Swore. So cursing, swearing. So again, trudge. Trudge is one of those words that makes you think about hard work. It's that kind of imagery. Oops. Imagery. Hard work. Slog. And they're trudging to their distant rest. So, they're not even close to finishing their march or wherever they're going to. Men march to sleep, that's how tired they are. Many had lost their boots, but limped on bloodshod. So the only thing they're wearing on their feet is blood. All went lame, all blind, drunk with fatigue. So again, not actually drunk. So you could say it's a metaphor. But so fatigued, again, knock-kneed, bent over, trudging. Most of them, many had lost their boots, so barefoot with bloody feet. So they're all limping. They either can't see because, they've got something wrong with their eyes, or they're just so tired they can't get their eyes open. Deaf even to the hoots. Drunk with fatigue. I might get that in the underline. Drunk with fatigue. So metaphor. So tired that you can't walk straight. Basically. Okay. So deaf, so they can't even hear, whether they have, damage to their hearing because of consistent bonfire, artillery, that kind of thing. But maybe they're just past it. Then they can no longer hear it because they're so used to it. So deaf even to the hoots of disappointed shells. So disappointed, an artillery shell can't be disappointed. So there is an example, is personification. Doesn't find its mark. So obviously the shell can't be disappointed, but what he's describing is the fact that the shell's dropping behind them, they've missed their mark, they haven't been hit by them. The other thing about these first 8 lines is the trudging. We've got all this imagery of age and fatigue and hardship and very slow speed. They're limping along, they're sleeping on their feet. Suddenly, massive change of speed. And we get this, whoops, let's spell that right, with, you've got capital letters, exclamation mark, short, short, short. So you've got the lines that go before it, deaf even to the hoots of disappointed shells that drop behind, nice long line. Now you've got short, 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 short. Gas, gas, quick boys, and ecstasy of fumbling. So a huge change of speed. Let's give that an orange. Sun change of speed. And then he describes that fitting of the gas mask. So they called it helmet. It was a helmet at this time, but it eventually became known as a gas mask, and that's what we would refer to it as. So helmet. Let's give that a little highlight. Go back to yellow. Oops. And this is where he describes that fumbling, the clumsy fumbling, trying to get these helmets on. And we saw some images of those gas masks, and they were very clunky, not very refined. I mean, this was the first time that gas had been used as a weapon, ever. Okay, so this technology of the gas mask was extremely new, and that's why we even don't have a word for it yet. But somebody was still out yelling. Someone still was yelling out and stumbling and floundering like a man in fire or lime. So one of their colleagues didn't get his gas mask on, so he's suffering the full effect of the gas attack. So he is yelling, he's stumbling, and he's floundering like a man in fire or lime. Another simile, yeah? So although there is no fire, there is no quicklime. So lime is a substance that burns as well, and this gas burned that came down, from the sky. Now, so you've got this imagery of all these other guys are, trying to get their helmet on. This guy is out in it. He's getting the full brunt of this gas attack. So dim through the misty panes and thick green light. So right now, they're viewing this, fumbling and stumbling and yelling, through these misty panes and the thick green light. So let's give that a little. Oh, that's not a very good colour. And so they're watching through their gas masks. So the misty panes refers to the eye holes that they've got. So they've got these very thick, very small glass eye holes to look through, and they're watching their colleague through this. As under a sea. So as, again, a simile. So as, like, than. All denotes a simile. So as under a green sea, I saw him drowning. So he's drowning in this gas on dry land. So he's yelling, he's stumbling, he's floundering, he's drowning. So that's another simile. I haven't organised my colours very well, but you can do a much better job of that. Simile. In all my dreams, before my helpless sight, so obviously when you're dreaming, you have no control over what you're seeing. He plunges at me, guttering, goes to guttering, so that's that sound you make in the back of your throat, like choking, drowning. So this image, this sight that he's seen of his colleague drowning in this gas, haunts him in his dreams. And in his dreams, this guy, this soldier, is coming towards him, and he's choking and he's drowning. If in some smothering dream you too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in, so saying to the reader, if you could have been there, if you could see this for yourself, the way that they had to follow the wagon that held all their injured soldiers in. So behind the wagon that we flung him in, So we threw them into the wagon,